All right.
Yeah, thank you, Oliver. I appreciate that. All right, everybody, welcome. We appreciate you attending and taking your time out to share with us. It's always exciting for us to at least lay out some information that we think can be helpful. Today, our project is going to be with regard to Panel Designer. That's actually a component that's built into our WinCap software. What I'm going to do is really simple. I'm going to walk through a brief presentation of the sequence of how we would create a panel screen. And then what we're going to actually do is actually create the panel screen itself. And the intent is really to show you the ease of use in the WinCaps of how to create the face of a panel. Along the way, there's a code behind each button or part that we'll put in the panel. We'll show you that just on a small scale, but mainly our goal is to keep it really simple, fairly short, and nice and sweet so that you can see that the simplicity exists. So I'm just going to walk through this presentation um, relatively quickly, but enough to give you information. Give me a sec here while it changes. So here's our purpose. It's really what I just said, is to demonstrate the simplicity and ease of creating the face of a Teach Pendant. And by the way, when you create these panel screens, and this is the panel screen we're going to create, you can create many panel screens. I don't think there's actually a limit, but you could put panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, panel 4, etc., to create the screen face for your Teach Pendant. So in our world, our Teach Pendant and our controller are actually very important tools for us. We would consider it a soft PLC, and what we found in our experience with this, which is many years now, we found that we can create this soft interface with the Teach Pendant without having to use a PLC. Typically, in a production line, you'll see robots that are slaved to a PLC. That makes sense to most people. That's typically what we do. But there are many occasions where it's just the robot, the controller, and the Teach Pendant itself. And what we need to do is then create a panel screen that allows the operator to very simply hit a couple of buttons and then move on from where they stand. We can create a face for the Teach Pendant from something that's very simple to turning on an I/O or starting a program, or we could make it as complex as a keypad where we want to dictate what quantity parts we're going to assemble in this particular process. So we're going to do something that allows you to either start a simple program or something that could allow you to actually have better control in your production. So in order to do this, you're going to need a couple things. You're going to need the WinCaps 3 offline programming software. You can get that free if you like with a temporary license off of our website. And we'll need an RC8, RC8A controller and the Teach Pendant. Now, for our purposes today, we're not going to involve the Teach Pendant literally or the controller either literally. We're going to really, truly just show you how to create the face of a a panel for the Teach Pendant. This is an example. So this picture on the right here, your panel 1, that's the layout that we're going to create today. On the left are the types of buttons that we got. We can do a label button. And by the way, we call them parts in our manual. We typically talk about them as buttons because that's typically how we think about them. So if we say button or part, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the specific piece that's going to sit on the face of the panel. So you've got a label box, you've got a text box, numerical value input box, a group box, radio button, checkbox, a push button, an illuminated push button, a pilot lamp, a line, a rectangle, an oval, a function key, and a timer. If you look right above the chart, you'll see there's a toolbar there with these buttons. We're going to use that in the process. So there are 4 steps to developing this functional panel. It's number 1, load an editor, which is creating a program. We're going to create the panel layout. And those are the 2 main things we're going to do today. Once you've created the panel layout, you're actually going to edit the action source code for each button or each part behind the scenes. And then once that's all complete, we send the data to the controller. So let me show you in an image. We're going to create the program. This is what it will look like. Put this image in your mind's eye. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to open up where we create our panel layout. We're going to edit that source code to make the buttons actually work, but we're going to skip that step today. And the fourth step is to send it to the controller. We're going to skip that step today. So remember this, create a program, create the panel layout, and this is what it will look like when we go to display the layout window. We're going to be able to use your little icons there. You can see the Teach Pendant where it says panel 1. We're going to click on that and move over to lay out the buttons. And this is what you're going to see when we add the parts or the buttons onto the face of the panel screen. All right, so what I'm going to do next is actually lay this out for you. What I hope that you'll get from this is it's easy to point, click, drag and drop. It's easy to label. It's easy to change the text colors. It's easy to change the colors of the dynamics of the buttons. And truly, the goal is to do this in a short period of time. So hopefully that will come across and you'll be able to see that as we move forward. This is the panel we're going to create. We're going to come back to this in a second. I just want to let you know that we have additional resources available. We're worldwide. We have a lot of information available to you. And what I'm going to do is thank you in advance for sharing your time, because we do appreciate you spending your time with us at lunchtime, especially today or wherever you're at in the day. I'm going to jump out of this and I'm going to get to my WINCAPS. So bear with me all. I appreciate that. I just need to get the swap done there. So this is already open in WINCAPS. I've already created a project. This is the panel build. What we're going to do right now is just jump in and create the program. I'm going to pick right here operation panel or panel screen. I'm going to call this, I'm going to title it panel 1, and I'm going to copy, I'm going to create the panel to look just like the panel we've shown. You'll be able to see this okay here. Do you all see that okay? Jump on my panel. And there's the screen. And you'll see that this is laid out in a grid. Let's start here. We're going to create a label button first. This is going to be panel 1. So I click on the button right here. It's already prepared. I can drag it over here and put it in the location about where I want it to be. We're going to call this panel 1. What I'm going to do, so you can see over here in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see that there's a property box. This is the label 1 button. It's actually just a label. I'm going to change that text to be white. Actually, I'm going to leave it black. I'm going to change the background to be white, because that's actually what it looks like in the example that we're using. And then down here, you'll see where it says caption. We're going to change the caption. We're just going to label this panel 1. Click over here. So I've highlighted that button, and that's our first piece. I can move this around either with my mouse or up here across the toolbar. There are different, a little more precise ways to move your buttons around. So that's the first one. The next one we're going to create is the group button. That sits right below this panel. We'll lay it out here as best we can, kind of in our mind's eye what we need to do compared size-wise. I'm doing this by eye to compare against the panel screen that we were looking at. And just to remind you, that's the screen we're going to create. Jump back to WINCAPS. Sorry, guys. Project Go. And open that up again. So you'll see that the title of this box is Group 1. What we're going to do is just take the caption, and we're going to put condition 1. Label that. And I'm going to go ahead up here and I'm going to change the text, if you will, to white, because that's what it's like in our example. And then to this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stretch this out a little bit more. I'm going to add in here radio buttons inside this group box. One right there. I'll lay it out here. A little bit bigger. I'm going to add another radio button in here. I'm going to drag it in here and put it right below this button. So I guess my mistake there. Let me drag this back over here. Sit to the right side. So I'm going to highlight radio button 1. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make that text white. I'm going to change that caption to option 1. And I'm going to change my next radio button to the same text color. Make that white. And then I'm going to change the caption to the option 2. Okay. You see, we created those 2 buttons. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in here a line across the bottom, and I'll just go ahead and write. Here's your line button. I'm going to drop it in right around here, bring it all the way across. You can see that it's currently black. I want to make it white. So I'll go to my properties box right here. So I've got that highlighted. Change that to white. The next thing I'm going to do is drop a couple push buttons in here, and just for refresher, let's look back at the panel guide right now and see where we're at. There's panel 1. Actually, I think I need to change the text there, but I've got my group box. I got my panel 1 box. I created this line, and now we're going to create the 2 push buttons down here, the previous and the next. Open that back up. Okay. Just drop a couple of push buttons in down here. So this is where I went to. I went to the push button. Drop it right there. I'm going to get another push button, which I come back up here. Push button. Put it in there. Maybe make this a little bit bigger. You guys get the idea. You highlight this, make this 1. You guys can see that looks pretty much, I'm doing this all by eye. So I'm highlighted on push button 1. I'm going to call this, I'm going to change the text to white. And now, you know what? I think I'm going to leave it black because it is actually black. I'm just going to change the caption. Highlight there. Let me put back in here where I need a couple of directionals. And I'll highlight here and say, change this one to next. So I think you all get the idea right now. It's very simple to identify which button you need, click it, drag it to where you want it to be, drop it, and then be able to change, the properties of each of these buttons. So now I have a couple pieces left. I'm going to go ahead, and I think what I'm going to do is create my start button over here. So back to a push button, which is what that is. And I'll create it right in here. Use that as my start. I'm going to leave the text as it is, and I'm just going to change the caption to start. I'm just going to change gears for just shift gears is what I really should say just here for a second. I want to show you something that in terms of the code source, it's behind the button, right? All we're doing today is just creating the face of the panel, simply showing that you can click on the button, drag it to where you want it to be, locate it as precise as you want it to be, change the properties, And that's our purpose. But behind the scenes, I'm going to highlight the start button, and you might see something like this. If I come up here to this little icon, I'm going to create my source panel, and you can see that I have my start button highlighted, right? Back here so you can see. And if I drop down in the panel button, I'll see push button 3 is the one that I've got highlighted. And if I click on the clicked over here, when I say clicked, it's going to put in a basic program, a subroutine, if you will. And to make this button operative, I'm just going to insert something like run PRO1. So for example, when the time comes and we send this to the controller, the button down here, the start button, it's now programmed to run program 1. Just going to close out of that. So that's what you would do behind the scenes to make these buttons operational. That's not our purpose today, but that's what's behind the scenes. Actually not that complicated. This is the simple part, and it gives your mind's eye a good view of what you need to see when you want to create your panel. The last thing that we're going to create here are the pilot lamps. There are 3 of them. We'll just locate all 3 here. One there. One up. Go get another one. Pilot lamp 2, and then we'll do a 3rd pilot lamp just to put them in here. You can see they're fairly well spaced out. Now I'm going to jump back to our panel guide, and you'll look at these pilot lamps, and you'll notice that the green one says blue. I'm going to label it blue as well, and I'm going to leave the color green. I'm going to take the second one, I'm going to make it yellow and label it yellow, and then the pink one that says red, I'm going to do the same thing there. I'm going to label it red and make it pink, okay? So hang with me here. Let me get back in here. So I'm going to highlight on pilot lamp 1 and leave it the color that it is, but I'm going to caption it blue. Hope you're chuckling. The second one is going to be yellow, so we'll actually make it yellow. And then we'll actually call it yellow. How's that sound? And the last one we're going to make pink and call it red. So let's right here. Red. There we go. Make it pink. Oh, you got that? Oh, sorry. So I think you guys get the picture that it didn't take me very long to create the face of this panel. For me, my advantage is I know which button to point to. I have an idea of where I want to locate it. But the truth is that if you were to try and get involved in this in some way, I think you'll find that it really is that simple to create the face of the panel. You know, there's many things that you can do. You can import graphics, pictures. They have to be it has to be a bitmap file, but you can import traditional, illustrations or pictures, whatever you want to be able to show on the face of the panel. But the point of this is really just to let you see it's actually pretty easy to create. I didn't think it'd take us that long. It's probably 10 to 15 minutes it took to create the face of that panel. And my goal is not really to keep it short just to keep it short, but the point is to show that the simplicity of creating the panel really is that quick and easy. So without really any further ado, I'll leave you with this as the example to create the panel. I guess we'll open it up to questions, Q&A, and let us know what your thoughts are. Appreciate your time, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to share this information with you. All the best, and you have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Terrific job. So we're going to go over the questions that our attendees had on the right side. If you still have some questions, you can post it in the Q&A section on the right side, and we'll answer them as well. But we'll go over that right now. Scroll up here. All right, so Bryn asked, I've seen constants in panel designer programs as 2 to the power of 3, for example, but couldn't find the exact description of this in the manual. Is this undocumented? And this is over my head, but Brian answered it and said, yes, you should be able to perform standard arithmetic operations inside the panel screen for evaluation, just like you can in the PAC script. And he put a link below in the manuals where you can find that. Where can I download the panel designer software? And the panel designer software is actually already in our WINCAPS software, so you don't have to download it at all. So it's not a separate piece of software where you have to purchase. It's already included. Let's see here. Wave. Oh, someone asked where we can look at the manuals online or download WinCaps. And you can go to our DENSO Wave website, and Brian put our link there below. It's just densowave.com. And you can find manuals. You can go and download our trial version for WinCaps, and then you can go ahead and make your own program and design your panel as well, like what Mark just showed you. Can you make your own designs, or can you only work with the default designs that are in the panel designer? And I said that you can import picture files, like Mark said. I believe you can make those picture files and put them on like a button. And that's pretty much the only way you can make your own designs, is if you import a picture. I think that's what your question was, and make it a button. But other than that, for lamps or buttons or radio buttons, it's pretty much what's default in the panel designer. So you can't import your own custom, I guess, buttons is what he's asking. Oh, Brian said that you can, it's extremely flexible. The panel screens are flexible. Using the tools and functions, you can customize and build a panel screen to show or perform what you want. You can do custom backgrounds, pictures on buttons, and etc. So yeah, he's sort of restating what I said, is other than importing your own pictures or your own background picture, the only other thing for something custom it is just importing a picture. Are these panels intended for operators or maintenance functions? So these panels are, Steve said, these panels are highly flexible. They're great for maintenance, for monitoring your I/O, as well as an operator to quickly and easily see the status. So yeah, the panel screens are sort of for maintenance use as well as operator use, but it's pretty much like an HMI. You can see what's on, what's off. Your gripper is on or off. A valve is on or off. Things like that. You can stop and start a program. You can make whatever you'd like. It's sort of like an ease of use HMI. Brian said the same thing. Panel screens are applicable for both the operator and maintenance. Another question. Michael asked, are the panel screens saved in a format that I can load the same panel into multiple controllers? And the answer is yes. You can. If you can see on the top of the screen, it's a .pns file. So you can go ahead and use this panel screen into multiple programs. Tony asked, does the name of the panel screen matter when loading on the Teach Pendant? Where did that go? Does the name of the panel screen matter when loading on the Teach Pendant? The only name that Brian said that the only name that matters is the top level panel screen. It must be called main.pns if or that is the file that the Teach Pendant button will be calling. After that, you can name them whatever you would like, following programming naming conventions, and then create it. So an entire menu structure at your discretion. So yes, you would have to call. He said basically you'd have to call a main.pns panel screen first, for your top level. Dave asked, can you allow an operator to edit offset variables for tweaking positions? Can you allow an operator to edit offset variables and tweak positions? And yeah, you can allow that. So, oh, here, Brian just said, yes, you can allow this if you desire, or you could put a panel screen under a custom password lock if you desire. So I guess Dave's question was, can an operator edit on this panel screen? And the answer is yes, you can edit on this panel screen. You can also have a password lock, like Brian said, so that only operators could go into it and edit these functions, since they're very important, and have just maintenance have a regular screen and not give them the password. Santibanez. Sorry, I butchered your name. This linked with simulator can use to control the simulator. This links with the simulator. Oh, can this link with the simulator or control the simulator? Brian said you cannot control, you cannot simulate a panel screen in WINCAPS. However, through our virtual robot controller, you can simulate it. So I guess his question was, if we control or if we create this panel screen, are we able to simulate this panel screen with the robot moving around? And in WINCAPS, you cannot, but we have another software program called VRC, Virtual Robot Controller. And through there, it acts as a Teach Pendant. So you can look at your panel screen on that virtual Teach Pendant and see and connect the two and see your robot moving in WINCAPS and your panel screen being active as well. Let me see any other questions. WINCAPS. Oh, Aiden asked in the chat if the WINCAPS software is free. And yes, WINCAPS software is free for 90 days. We have a trial version. And again, you can go and Google DENSO Robotics or DENSO Wave and download the trial version. And we'll give you, or on there, it has a trial version WINCAPS license. And you just input that license and you'll have WINCAPS on there, and you can do this type of programming that Mark just taught you today. Teach Pendant is without button, and we create the screen. Not sure. Alejandro asks, Teach Pendant is without button. We create the screen. I'm not sure exactly where your question is, Alejandro. Teach Pendant is a controller, yes. Teach Pendant is the controller, but it is free to create a panel to control it. So yes, we have a Teach Pendant, a separate Teach Pendant that connects to our controller. So this right here is WINCAPS. It's the offline programming tool, and you can create a panel screen on here, and I believe you can create the panel screen on our Teach Pendant as well, right, Mark?
You're Yeah, go ahead, Oliver. Say that again.
Yeah, I think it's more difficult to do it on the Teach Pendant, but it's available. But in any case, creating panel screens is included in WinCapS. But in any case, yes, the controller is the Teach Pendant, or I'm sorry, the Teach Pendant is basically the not the controller. It's like is the Teach Pendant that connects to our controller. And yes, you can create panel screens. You can create panel screens and load it onto our Teach Pendant or onto the controller to visually see it on the Teach Pendant and make those buttons like Mark just did. And it's a touch screen, so you can touch those buttons on that touch screen. You cannot create. I'm sorry. I guess you cannot create a panel screen directly on the Teach Pendant. So my fault. But you have to do it directly on WinCapS. So my fault. Thanks, Dave. So, all right. Yeah, I think that is all the questions for now. Again, thanks everyone for coming, and we definitely appreciate it during this quarantine for coming to our webinar. But at the end of this webinar, there's going to be like a 15-20-second survey. It's just radio buttons and a quick fill in the blank. If you guys could just fill that out for us, it'll take you 15 to 20 seconds. That would help us greatly. And again, we have webinars. We have a webinar on Thursday and Friday. We'll get back to you with those links as well. If you're on LinkedIn, you can Google our name, DENSO Robotics, and it should pop up. I post it every day. And if you guys have any other questions, actually, I'm sorry. Also, Mark's going to get back to everyone that joined this webinar. We're going to send you an email with this PowerPoint as well as a link to the recorded webinar. And you guys can follow up with Mark, give us a call, send an email, and let us know what we can help you with. So thanks again, guys. I'm going to stop this recording. And thanks again, Mark. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Oliver.